The people of UK thought electronics would become more affordable, but post-Brexit, that hope has vanished. Free trade deals were supposed to make imported goods cheaper, but now the UK doesn't want free trade deals anymore. Free trade deals were once seen as the cornerstone of UK's prosperity, but now the UK's enthusiasm is cooled. Why the sudden change of heart? The allure of global trade, once an enticing vision for the UK, post-Brexit now seems less appealing. What went wrong? Many remember the promises made during Brexit, that breaking away from the European Union would unleash a new era of independent trade deals with countries around the world, from the US to Australia. The excitement was palpable. A chance for Britain to reclaim control, negotiate its own terms, and strike lucrative trade partnerships. It was supposed to be a defining moment, a statement of national strength and economic independence. So why, after so much anticipation, has the enthusiasm for these deals dwindled? What has shifted in the UK's perspective, and why are free trade agreements no longer a top priority? The reality behind this shift is more complex than it appears. After initial optimism, several unexpected challenges have emerged, throwing cold water on the vision of global free trade prosperity. To understand this change, we need to explore the evolving political landscape, the pressures on domestic industries, and the unforeseen trade-offs that have forced a major rethink in strategy. The answers aren't straightforward, but they reveal a lot about the evolving priorities of the nation. The story begins with the UK's bold ambitions after Brexit. The government eagerly pursued new trade agreements to establish its presence on the global stage, free from the constraints of EU regulations. Deals were made with Japan to help lower the prices of products like cars and electronics, while the agreement with Canada aimed to keep items like maple syrup and agricultural goods flowing smoothly. The trade deal with Australia was meant to make products like beef and wine more affordable, and negotiations with the United States hoped to reduce costs on items like American whiskey and technology. For a while, it seemed like the promises of Brexit were taking shape. But as the ink dried on these agreements, unexpected challenges arose. Many of these deals came with compromises that went immediately obvious to the public. Farmers, for instance, raised concerns about the impact of cheaper imported goods on local agriculture. They worried that these cheaper imports would make it difficult for local farmers to compete, potentially leading to a decline in domestic farming operations and loss of livelihoods for many in the agriculture sector. Before Brexit, the UK was part of the European Union's Single Market and Customs Union, which allowed tariff-free trade with other EU member states and provided collective bargaining power for deals with non-EU countries. This provided protection for local farmers and industries, making it easier for them to compete. The EU's Common Agricultural Policy also provided subsidies and support, which helped sustain local agricultural operations. Leaving the EU meant losing these benefits, and the UK now had to negotiate its own deals independently. This is just one example of how Brexit fundamentally changed the playing field. There are others. The food industry balked at lowered standards that threatened to affect the quality of products available to UK consumers. In some cases, the promised economic benefits turned out to be less significant than initially forecasted, leaving businesses and policymakers questioning the true value of these agreements. Political realities also played a major role. The global landscape has shifted since the Brexit vote, with rising economic nationalism and trade protectionism becoming more prevalent. Public sentiment in the UK, too, has started to favor safeguarding domestic industries and jobs rather than pursuing potentially risky international agreements. The initial excitement gave way to a more cautious approach as people began to recognize the costs that came with these deals, from undercutting local farmers who struggled to compete with cheaper imports to compromising on environmental and labor standards. The UK government found itself in a tough spot. On one hand, they had to honor their post Brexit commitment to global trade. On the other, they needed to ensure that the interests of local industries and the concerns of voters were prioritized. This balancing act ultimately led to a slowdown in the pursuit of new free trade agreements with a greater emphasis on economic stability and self sufficiency instead. The UK's changing stance on free trade isn't just about economic calculations, it's about a deeper re-evaluation of national priorities. The initial zeal for independence and global deals has been tempered by a need to protect domestic industries and maintain a high quality of life for citizens. This shift signals a broader, more cautious approach to globalization, one that prioritizes local stability over global ambition. For many, this is a surprising turn of events, but it underscores a fundamental truth. In an unpredictable world, sometimes the best way forward is to take a step back and rethink what really matters.